finally, the U.S.-Mexico trade deal. By the time you see this tomorrow it'll be Friday, much of this might have changed. I don't know. But I'm going to go with what I got, and what I got is this clip, and we're going to discuss this clip. I'm going to go over this clip. This clip made me giggle, so hopefully it does the same for you. But yeah, we'll see.
Joining me now is U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. Secretary Ross, always great to see you.
Now I'm going to say this right off the bat. I fucking love this guy.
How does this deal map what might happen next with Canada, and what are the chances that something actually gets done? I think the deadline is Friday, so in the next 4 days with Canada.
It's tomorrow. Technically for you guys, today. So that's why I'm saying much of this might have changed by the time you see it, but yeah, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Well, this deal is pretty well put together with Mexico. So the president, as he's indicated, is fully prepared to go ahead with or without Canada. We hope that Canada will come in. I think it's a good idea if they do. There's really not much they should object to, but if not, they will then have to be treated as a real outsider.
And I think that's the reason why they've put such a quick deadline on this. Honestly, I don't think that the president wants Canada to be involved in this deal. I really don't. And if they're going to be involved in this deal, I think he's pushing them to rush through the decision so that they just kind of agree to it with whatever the fuck's in it. So they don't have a lot of time to really dicker around with it and try and come up with something different. I really don't think that he wants to do this as a joint deal. I think he wants to have a deal with Mexico and then a totally different deal with Canada. But again, I don't know what's happened today so far, so...
What would that do to the economy and the markets and people who who export a lot of goods made here in the United States to Canada? How much have you weighed that?
Well, we've weighed it, but overall, the key thing is the Canadian economy really can't survive very well without a deal with the U.S. They're too dependent on us, and particularly too dependent on the automotive sector. Since we've already resolved the automotive issues with Mexico, and those are not issues that are particularly adverse to Canada.
Now, I know that this guy is probably putting most of you to sleep. He's about as entertaining and lively as paint drying. I get it. But believe me when I tell you, there is a point where he gets going, and this guy is a fucking pip.
Canada's wages are over $16 an hour anyway, so that's not a problem. The inclusion of 75% within NAFTA should not be a problem for them. So there's really not much in the big red letter things that they should have any problems with. They may have some problems with the kinds of concessions we need. Mm-hmm. They've been very bad to our farmers, particularly to our dairy farmers. The President has made clear that's not something that's agreeable to him.
Yeah, funny that. The President of the United States doesn't like it when people shit on U.S. citizens. It almost seems like he's the first president in our fucking history, at least in my lifetime, that really felt that way. I mean, obviously, when you get back too far, then you're really talking out your ass. But in my lifetime, I haven't seen another president that has been so gung-ho about Americans.
They've not been that good on intellectual property, and intellectual property is a big part of the protections that are coming in with NAFTA. So there are some parts that they're going to have to adjust to.
And I think that's another reason why they're speeding this through, why we took our time dealing with Mexico, yet Canada's going to have to fucking just, hey, bitch, you got 4 or 5 days to figure it out. Like, is this cool with you or not? Like, I really think that there's a little bit of, we don't want you involved in this going on.
Mr. Secretary, how much time are you giving Canada? Is it literally this Friday? Is that all the time that Canada is going to have to step up?
Well, we need to get...
I love the look on her face when he coughs. Check it out.
Well, we need to get...
She's like... I don't know why, it just makes me fucking laugh. And that cough... I don't know, that just sounds bad. I don't know about poor Wilbur.
Get our process rolling. Under the TPA process, there are lengthy negotiating periods after which you have to get consent of Congress to go forward. So it's pretty important that we file something very, very promptly. And that might be as simple as to say, we have a deal with Mexico. We hope Canada will come in, but if not, we're going ahead with it anyway. So that's one possible filing. The other possible filing would be a three-way one.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It just sounds like every time they're kind of like, yeah, if Canada wants to get in on this, whatever. But if not, fuck them. We're going ahead. Like, I don't know. I get that, you know, there's deadlines. There are actual, like, deadlines, like legal deadlines or political deadlines or whatever. But I really just, I don't know. Something tells me that we don't really want Canada to be involved in all of this. I think that they want their own fucking deal with the U.S. And I can see a lot of reasons why they would want that. You know, having a deal with us in this country and us in this country, as opposed to having a deal with all three countries together, that gives us a certain degree of control, and I think that's what Donald Trump is pushing with here with this deadline.
The Wall Street Journal, I want to get your reaction to this, the editorial page writing a response to the trade deal. The title of the editorial is Half a NAFTA. And here's just a little sum of what the Wall Street Journal editorial page writes. This deal contains some improvements, but is notably worse in many ways. So worse than the original NAFTA agreement.
Look at the look on his face. That grin cracks me up every time I see him with that grin, because he's just so straight, and then all of a sudden she brings this shit up, and he's like, dude, I love this fucking guy.
They go through the one problem they see: the bilateral deal strips current protections from most U.S. investors in Mexico. They also don't like the new red tape and cost on our auto industry to punish imports. I want to get your response to that. And they also essentially say it's a handout to the unions to woo Democratic votes.
Well, one of the purposes is to put wages up in Mexico. Think about it. Long term, how can we compete with $20+ an hour wages in our automotive if their wages are around $4? So there is a need to put their wages up. Putting their wages up will also have the effect of opening more consumer markets for American products.
It also might keep more Mexicans in fucking Mexico.
The other thing is that there is much more enforceability of environmental rules in this pact than in any other free trade agreement we've ever had.
And that's something you're probably only going to hear about right there, folks, because nobody's ever going to talk about that, because that makes Donald Trump look like he gives a fuck about the environment, and we can't have that running around.
Much more enforceability on labor. So this is dealing with some structural reforms that will bring Mexico's cost structure much closer to ours.
And help their people out a lot.
And then the objection that it's against multinational companies, well, that's right. The president wants factories here in the U.S., not in Mexico, not in Canada, not anywhere else.
What a fucking asshole. I mean, I can't believe that he wants American jobs to be in America. What a dick.
So the journal is correct in saying that this will encourage factories to move back to the U.S., and that's one of the big purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. First time in my lifetime, at least, that there's been a president that's cared so much about Americans.
The president has been very clear about that.
Well, just like the steel tariffs, how is that not a handout to the unions and a way to court the Democrats, which the Journal editorial also goes into?
Fuck it, man. Like, you got to get your votes where you can, and if he's doing something good for everybody, then yeah, he's kind of courting everybody's votes. And why the fuck wouldn't he want to? And what exactly is he handing out to them? Like, the fucking question seems asinine to me.
A handout to unions is simply
That's my phrase, by the way, Mr. Secretary, handout to the unions. I've said that about the steel tariffs, that it helps the few and hurts the many who use steel.
Oh, so this isn't the Wall Street Journal. This is fucking you. Ah, well, I'm glad you actually came up front about that.
Well, it really isn't the case. If you look at the unemployment figures, they keep going down. Jobs are being created very rapidly. The President has created some 3 million jobs, of which about 300-odd thousand are in manufacturing. There's no visible sign that the steel and aluminum tariffs have been anything but, on balance, good. And the reason for it is that steel and aluminum tariffs in the aggregate are a fraction of 1% of the GDP. So anybody who thinks that's going to destroy the consuming industries simply can't do the math right.
Let me clear that up for you. He said, you need to learn how to count, bitch.
Can you count, suckers?
But, Mr. Secretary, a lot of people, not just myself, view the fact that you've had thousands of waiver applications from these steel tariffs, greater complexity as businesses try to figure out if they're going to get hit with a tariff that might be down the road, say on goods that are imported into the United States from China. That adds regulation. It adds a layer of complexity, if you will. It makes Washington swampier.
Yeah, see, no, you don't get the fucking... Clearly this chick doesn't understand the turn of phrase. The drain the swamp thing was, he's going to make it less corrupt, not less complex. Government's complex. It's always complex. And this isn't even actually complex. You just need to use your brain.
And that's something that the president ran against, but also he has done so much to roll back regulations. Why make doing business more complicated in the United States?
It isn't that it's more complicated. There's nothing more complicated than a supply chain that involves China, Thailand, Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, Europe, and a whole bunch of other countries.
Fucking look at those stock numbers. Like, honestly, I wouldn't trade the 10 months that I took off for the world. It was such a great time. I had a lot of fun with all of you guys. It was fun to build my channel. Great memories. But, fuck, man, I can't even imagine what my stock would be worth right now.
The supply chains are already very complicated. And it's a little bit silly for a big multinational company to say, well, we can't cope with a rule that tells us where our goods should come from. They know very well where their goods come from. It's called a purchase order. You don't buy things just in a vacuum. You buy them from a particular supplier in a particular country. So that's all a lot of hooey.
I love this fucking guy.
The fact is that the purpose of this is to bring jobs back. It will accomplish that purpose, and that's what the free trade people are complaining about.
Yeah, they're complaining because they can't do fucking all this. Well, we're going to move our company over here because we don't have to pay those people as much. So it helps with our bottom line. Well, fuck you. How about that? Go ahead and move it over there. and we'll tariff the shit out of everything you try and send back in.
If
No,
anybody
Mr.
thinks
Secretary,
creating jobs
with all
for
due
Americans,
respect, I've had a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs who are just starting their businesses, and they're beginning to source, say, supplies from China, and now they don't know if their goods are going to be hit with the tariff that might come down the road. I think that's a legitimate concern.
Well, with all due respect, next time you talk to those small business owners and entrepreneurs, I would say that you should suggest that they source American and that they look into buying American.